What is up, y'all? I'm Benjamminoutdoors, and this is my channel.
Welcome back, y'all. So today we're working on the S1000 again, and I'm super excited because this is one of the nicest bikes I've ever owned. Now, I typically have the beater CBR and a bunch of other cheap $500, $600 bikes, but this is going to be most definitely the best bike I've ever had, especially the most showy. With the gold fairings, it's going to be a flashy bike, and I'm excited for it because it'll grab a lot of attention. But we have a lot to do on it, so let's go ahead and get into it. So before I do anything on the bike, I kind of want to go over all the stuff that I've received for this project so far. So there's a bunch of miscellaneous parts that were missing on the bike, like front caliper bolts, subframe bolts. Didn't have any brake pads at all, so I had to get brake pads. The timing chain cover was damaged, so I had to buy a new one of those. And of course, engine sliders, I wanted to get some to try to protect because this was $100 alone. And both these engine case sliders were like $30, so I'd much rather spend that than have to buy another timing chain cover. Plus, I really liked this design because the other timing chain cover slider on the actual bike is only like an L-shaped. So it bolted right here and it can easily snap off. This way, this thing cannot snap off. It should slide evenly across the asphalt or concrete, and it shouldn't damage the bolts or anything like that on this cover. So that's why I went with this one. In theory, I think this should work the best. Also, sprocket cover was missing that. I was able to get that for super cheap. Also, the rear set, this one is actually damaged, but the parts that are damaged on it aren't damaged on mine. So I was able to talk the guy on eBay down to 65 instead of like $100. Also, got axle sliders. These don't look super tough, and I'm kind of worried about these. I don't think that they'll perform in a wreck if they even install correctly. Also, fresh battery, super cheap. It was like 35 bucks. And I've used these Mighty Max batteries before. I don't think I had the bike for, a couple years to see how it did long term, but the battery did great for the period I had that bike. So that's why I went with the cheap one, because I'm trying to keep this build as cheap as possible with still going with OEM parts if I can. Also, I got a OEM front seat, which I was super happy about because I got it for the same price the cheap Chinese front seats are going for. So I actually found this one on eBay used, but it's literally mint condition. It's going for like $55. And it was local too. I was able to go on my lunch break and pick it up and maybe waste 30 minutes of my lunch break. And I didn't have to pay for shipping, which was awesome. So, awesome find, super happy with that. I did have to go with the Chinese rear seat because the lock and key. Because I didn't receive the rear lock with this bike. Obviously, the most important part to this bike is the rear wheel that was bent. So I was actually able to find this local, relatively local, about an hour away. So I drove 2 hours on the bike, and it was a good ride, but I was able to save $200 buying this local opposed to buying on eBay. These things on eBay go for around $350, between $300 and $400 probably, and I was able to get this for $150. So I was super happy about that, and it looks amazing. Very, very limited scratching. I mean, there's some scratching on like the inside of the rim right here, but on the outside, I mean, it's basically mint. That front wheel is a little rough. I might even need to get a new front wheel because there's a good bit of scratches in it. Now, if it's straight, probably just leave it, but this one is definitely mint. And I was super happy about that find because BMW stuff is expensive. I'm normally a Yamaha or a Honda guy, and those stuff are significantly more cheap. So this is a little bit new to me, is all this expensive OEM stuff. So I was trying to go cheap, but not cheap at the same time. So that's all I got so far. So let's go ahead and start installing some of this stuff. Now I'm going to position it and lay the bike over on the ground so I can replace the timing chain cover. Alright. Now we're going to try to bend this bolt back. One broken bolt. As you can see, there's only 3 bolts that these sliders bolted down, and they're taller than the rest of the case, so they have more of an opportunity to, bend and snap. That's why I don't like these. So that's why I went with the other design. So let me get the other 2 out of here and pull the cover off. We got dowels right here that hold the guides. So I'm going to clean this up, and then I'm going to put a little bit of liquid gasket on it. So I'm looking, and it doesn't look like the threads are damaged at all, so I should be able to run it as is. Now I'm going to wipe down the cover. Just going to do a small dab along the entire thing. So it's got a nice thin layer on it. Don't forget, there's like a thrush washer right here. Goes in between the case cover and the actual sprocket. Then there's the 2 pins. There we go. The case cover has this one, and this one. That one snugs up. Cover looks pretty good. So now we're going to put on the actual slider. Now I'm going to flip it around. So I'm going to use my stand to get the bike more level, and these are courtesy of CJ Media. He came and used my white ones and thought they were insufficient, and he was nice enough to buy me some new ones without me even knowing. So shout out to that dude. So now I'm going to pull off the old slider. So it's a little bit different slider, but it'll work, I think, pretty good. $30 for these bad boys. Can't really complain. The other one looks really, really nice too. I mean, this whole entire face will slide, and you won't have to really worry about nothing snapping off like those other ones. All right, so here is the new rear set. Gonna start moving everything. Yeah, I should have put something on that. Woo! Fits good. The only thing I do not have is the rod that goes between the quick shifter and the actual shifter on the transmission. But I'm gonna install this real quick. I'm gonna put some blue Loctite on these bolts because I don't want these coming out. I'm gonna thread them in. Gonna take off the Gixxer battery. I believe this is the way it goes in. So part of this ignition is broken. It's just like a cover to it. So I'm gonna remove it and then basically melt it from the backside with my plastic welder and try to get it to where it won't move again. There's like gel in there. Okay. So I'm going to repair this and then epoxy this thing back on or something like that. So I kind of got the piece back into place, kind of pushed it back in there. So now I'm just going to basically take my plastic welder and just gently fuse it back together. So I'm going to press the trigger and let it heat up a good bit, and then just basically like go along the crack. It's not the prettiest thing, but as long as it doesn't come apart again, it'll be good. I'm actually going to mix up some 2-part epoxy. Now I'm going to put it on all the edges. So that's actually gonna be it for this video. I appreciate y'all watching. In the next video, I'm probably gonna work on the brake system. So there's actually a bunch of missing brake pads and there's no pressure in the front lines. So I'm going to get some pads, you know, do flushes in the front and rear brakes, all that good stuff. Make sure it stops like a top, because when I get this thing on the road, I'm not gonna be easy on it, that is for sure. So anyway, till next time, catch you on the flip side.